Good morning. We are now in Exodus chapter 16. We left off when they were at Elim, right? Elim. This word is Elim. So it's pronounced as E. Let's see how to write this down. Elim. All right? They were Elim and they had water. So they complained they had no water. The water was bitter, was mara. And so God changed the water from bitter to sweet. And we learned that the word sweet is not sugar sweet. It is pleasant to drink. So all these Hebrew expressions is slightly different from the English meaning that we have assigned it in the translation. And so now they journeyed from Elim. Every time you look at the word journey, it means pull out. Pull what out? They pulled the tent pegs out of the tent to pack the tent. And so in a concept, they are leaving the place and getting ready to move on a journey. And so the English word journey is a correct word. But the picture that is trying to portray is very much the tent removal of the tent pegs, and they are pulling out of the place. And all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they departed from the land of Egypt. Now remember, when they left Egypt, it was on the 15th day of the first month. Remember, we had a Passover. So when they gave this introduction in chapter 16, verse 1, it's just telling us that they have taken 1 month. So they have left Egypt, crossed the Red Sea, angry at God at Elim, no water, now got water, and now they are continuing their journey. Now, let me just draw you the map. If this was the Sinai Peninsula, let's see. And then Egypt, this is Sinai Peninsula, and that would be the Arabian Peninsula. And so Elim, I think, is my mind, Elim would be here. And this is Sinai. And so the wilderness of Sin is here, right? I think that is the case. Now, some people places it here. I don't think so, because that place is already the way of the Philistines. So I don't think that would be the case. I think it would be more closer to this part here, right? Now we go to the second verse. The whole congregation of Israel complained. Now the word in Old English is murmur. I think it would be easier to think of it as grumble, right? Grumble. The Hebrew word is lun. That's like the Chinese londun or something like that. Lun. So grumble, complain. So grumble means why like that, against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness of Sin. Now, why Moses and Aaron? Because they always see Moses and Aaron. The children of Israel said, hey, we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt when we sat by the pots of meat, because I got meat to eat. I have bread to be filled. So they complain about what? Meat and bread. Now, why can't they kill all the animals that's coming out? They're not supposed to, right? For you have brought us out into the wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. So the complaint is about being hungry. Now, can you imagine? They have gone through 10 miracles, crossed the Red Sea, and they can still do this. And so the Lord said to Moses, Hina, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you. Now, the word bread in verse 4 is lahem. And you know the name of the city, Bethlehem. So that's Lehem. Lechem, actually. This is the wrong spelling. Lechem. All right. From heaven, bread doesn't have to be whatever bakery bread. They just call it bread because it is a generic term, like rice. You don't know whether it's Japanese rice, sweet rice, or whatever rice. So that's the concept. When they call it bread, it is equivalent to us calling it rice, something to eat, right? And their staple. The people shall go out, gather a certain quota every day. Certain quota means some amount that I may test them. This is the key. In verse 4, the purpose of this is to test. Now, it could be testing God. God can be testing them. Essentially, it's to prove. Prove what? Prove whether they will walk in my Torah or not. And that's the intent. Now, you need to understand that God has given them the Torah. God is going to give them the Torah a couple of chapters later. But yet the word Torah has appeared here. And this is to really tell us, don't look at the word Torah as law. And I think that would be the right thing to do. Don't look at it as law. Look at it as instructions. It's like the parent telling the child, I'm going to test whether the child is going to listen to me or not. And that's it. Now, do you want to call it the law of the house? Fine. That's the principle and that's the instruction and the command that you gave. So that would be the Torah. Torah means instruction and direction. And to see whether they would walk in it. The instruction also comes with conditions. It shall be on the 6th day that you shall prepare what they bring in. It will be twice as much as they gather daily. So if they gather 2 liters a day, then on the 6th day, they will gather 4 liters. Why? So that the 7th day, they don't need to do it. That's the test. Then Moses and Aaron said to all the children of Israel, at evening, and I would say at sunset. Remember, why is evening so important? The Hebrew day, as in the book of Genesis chapter 1, right? And it was evening, and it was morning, and it was the first day. So they calibrate the day from sunset to sunset. So at sunset, you shall know that the Lord has brought you out of the land of Egypt. This sunset, this day when they are complaining. And in the morning and the evening and morning, right? It turns dark and it turns bright. You shall see the glory of the Lord. What is the glory of the Lord? This is not shining. The sun is shining, but when the sun shines, something is going to happen. For he hears. In the word here would be the regular word here. In verse 7, that he shama, right? He hears your grumbling against God. But what are we? Who are we to complain against, that you complain against us? And this is you being the people, us being Moses, Aaron, and God. Why do you do that? Now, this is the beginning of learning some very important principles of fearing God. Basically, they have seen the power of God in all the miracles, but they still do not fear God. Meaning what? Meaning they treat God like no big deal. So if I don't feel good, I complain. And that is the question here. This shall be seen when the Lord gives you meat to eat in the evening, and in the morning, bread lechem to the full. You eat until you cannot eat. For the Lord hears your complaints which you made against him. But what are we? Your complaints are not against us, but you're complaining against the Lord. Do you know how dangerous it is? You are treating God as nobody. Then Moses spoke to Aaron, say to all the congregation of the children of Israel, come near before the Lord. He has heard your complaints. Now it came to pass, Moses spoke to the whole congregation, and they looked toward the wilderness. Now, wilderness, if those of you have been to Egypt, going to Mount Sinai, actually everywhere looks the same. It's just rocks and sand, lots of it. And behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. That is the glory. See the glory here, the glory here. To show them, what do you mean by the glory of the Lord? When they see, I think that would be a very different sunshine, right? I think. Verse 11. The Lord spoke to Moses. I have heard the complaints, even the complaints of the children of Israel. See, God listens, but God doesn't always do what man wants him to do. Because God is not their butler, right? God is not the servant of the people. God is the Elohim. So it says, speak to them. And this is God's rules. So instead of just suddenly producing meat and bread for them, God is going to teach them how to fear God, how to obey God, how to listen to God. So in turn, he says, you want bread and you want meat? Can. But this is what you must do exactly as I said. At sunset, at twilight. Twilight in verse 12 speaks about the interval at the evening when the sun, when the light goes to darkness. That's the period of time called twilight. When the sun has set, the little light that is up there, and suddenly it goes off. By this time, you will have meat. Now, I've always told you guys, the Jewish day begins at sunset. And when they begin the day, they have their dinner, right? They call it the supper. So they eat meat. And in the morning for breakfast, you will be filled with bread. Morning means when it gets bright. And you shall know that I am the Lord your God. How can they know? Right? The word know is to perceive. No, it is to perceive. What do you mean to perceive? Yada. To know means you have to learn and then you know. You cannot know all of a sudden. So what is it that they have to learn to know that I am the Lord your God? They have to follow what God says. The rules are very clear. And so God says, I will give you meat, I will give you bread, but on my terms and conditions, so that you will learn to know that I am the Lord your God. I am not your kadam. I'm not your kuli. That is very important. When they complain to God and they expect it to be done, that is expecting God to be a kuli. And God is not a kuli. And so here, God says, I will show you. So what is it that they show you? Remember, in the Hebrew context, everything is concrete. There is no imagine the meat come into your mouth. Nothing. It is real. The quails, little birds, came at the sunset in evening, covered the camp. Now remember, the camp is very big, right? When they left Egypt, 600,000 men on foot. And I had suggested that we are talking about at least 1 million people, women, children, and elderly. And in the morning, the dew lay all around the camp. When the layer of dew lifted, dew means it's like mist. It's like in the on theater, on stage, right? They have the smoke machine there. You can't see the ground. That dew is a layer of mist. And when it lifts up, when the sun comes up, then the surface of the wilderness, instead of sand, They saw small round substance. Now this is important. Verse 14. They saw this something that is thin. So first of all, you must say that the description is small and thin. And then the second word here is something that flake off. It's like flakes, right? But it's bigger than snowflakes that comes off the rocks and the ground, right? The third one is dark. It means that it is fine. Right? The word fine is right here. Fine. Thin and round. Okay, let me just put this back. Thin, small, round is literally thin, right? Thin substance. And is as flakes on the ground. Now, they don't know what this is. That's important, right? They don't know what it is. And so when they saw it, they said to one another, and the word is, what is it? That's verse 15. What is it? And the word, what is it, is man. Not man, man. That's actually the word. What is it? Man. It's a question. And in the question, they did not know what it was. What is it? Man. And later you'll know that it became manna, right? That's what it means. Not the American pronunciation of manna, right? It's manna. And so now we go into the next part of the verse. Moses said to them, this is the lechem, the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. This is the thing which the Lord has commanded. Let every man gather according to your need. So how much are they to take? According to your need. I think it's quite similar to the today all-you-can-eat buffet, right? Eat what you can and don't take too much. So it says 1 omer. And in verse 16, it says 1 omer. 1 omer is actually a dry weight. That is about 2 liters. About 2 liters of a dry measure. It is equivalent to a sheaf. Now, next time when they grow wheat, we have got 1 sheaf when you can hold it in your hand, one clump, that would be an omer. And God says the allocation is 1 omer for 1 person. And if you have 5 persons, you get 5 omer. And you take for those who are in his tent. Now, this is important. Every man. The women didn't go out to take because the man is responsible to bring food home. The women is responsible to take care of the tent inside. Verse 17, so they did so, gathered some more, some less, and they measured by omer. And so he who gathered much had nothing left over. He who gathered little had no lack. Everybody is good. Every man gathered according to each one's need. And let no one leave any of it till the morning. Didn't we say that they were picking it up after the dew came off? What morning? And this word morning, verse 19, is boker when it becomes bright. This means that the sun is up and hot, bright. And when the sun is up and bright, then look at what happened. Some, they did not listen to Moses. Sure enough, you got some really degil people. And some of them left part of it until morning. What does this mean? Did not hear, they leave it until morning. They're supposed to finish it before the sun is hot. When the sun was hot, this was what happened. Worms, and then it became bad. And so Moses was angry with them. Why can't you hear? You gather every morning according to his need, eat it, and when it became hot and the sun came out, it melted, and that's it. There's no more. And it'll be enough for the day. I guess this is like a nutritional meal, right? Their protein shake. All you need is one meal, and everything is good. Until the sunset, you will have quail. And so it was. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much, 2 omers. And the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses, this is what the Lord said, tomorrow is the Shabbat rest, a holy Shabbat. Remember what is holy? Special. A special rest to the Lord. Now, they haven't gotten the 10 commandments yet they are talking about the Shabbat. Why is God doing that? Because God wants to teach them that he is the Lord, their God. And so it says, bake what you have to bake today, boil what you have to boil, and do everything until morning. And until morning, Moses commanded that it did not sting and there were no more worms. Why? Because they are keeping it for the next day. And so eat that today, for today it's a Sabbath. And so it didn't go bad, it didn't melt, because when they kept it for 2 days, it was meant that the Sabbath, you don't do the work of collecting, it will be fine. You will not find any of this there. 6 days you shall work, 7th day you shall rest. This is a precursor to the Sabbath. Why is God teaching them the Sabbath? Because God wants them to hear what he says and do as they are told. I guess I can say God's will, God's rules. And it happened that some of the people went out on the 7th day, nothing can be found. And the Lord said to Moses, how long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? Did Moses refuse? No. Who refused? Some of the people. But Moses is the head of the people. So God scolded Moses. And Moses is supposed to make sure that the people keep my commandments and my laws. Keep means to protect, to guard it. And when you guard it, you make sure that it is done. See, for the Lord has given you the Shabbat, and he gives you on the 6th day bread for 2 days. Let every man remain in his place. No man go out of his place on the 7th day. And this is to teach them. 6 days you do work, 7th day you rest. And that is the rule. God's will, God's rule. And all God wanted them was not to make their life difficult, but is to test them. Remember, the whole thing here is about testing. To test to see if they would hear God and keep the instructions. Now look at verse 31, and that will be the definition and one of the more important things for this morning. And the house of Israel means all 12 tribes, in this case, call its name, and we say manna. All right, manna. Now, the word here is still from the word man. And why did we get the na from? The na is just a sound to complete the word of what is it, so that you don't look at a name which is a regular word. So you notice in the names that they give to people in the Hebrew way, it is a verb, it is an adjective, it is an exclamation, but they add sounds to it to make it complete. Manna. Right? Manna. But basically, what are they saying? They're still saying man. Man. And they call the word man as, what does it taste like? It was like white coriander seed. So it's white in color. Very small, very thin, and it tasted like wafers, small flat cakes. Wafer means flat cakes. And by cakes, by the way, it is not our modern cake. It is bread, right? Made with honey. So it has honey taste. That is small and white. And that's what is man. The word manna. I have tried to find out. It's very much a common, how should we say, not a common word. It is the way to express the name itself. It's man, and if you look at this, it's mana, it's a double M. Man, not manna. Man is actually the word. One day when I figure out where the na come from, besides a word that we've always called, I will tell you in a different session. Verse 32. Then Moses said, "This is the thing which the Lord has commanded. Fill an omer," remember it's 2 liters. "Fill omer and be kept for your generations, that they may see the bread which I fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you out of the land of Egypt." And so they take a pot, put an omer of man in it, and then lay it up before the Lord to be kept. And this was put into the Ark of the Covenant. Right? Ark of the Covenant. So when it says, lay it up before the Lord, where is God amidst all this? It would be at the Ark. As the Lord commanded Moses, Aaron led it before the testimony. That's the Ark, the 34, right? Verse 34. The reason why it's called testimony or reminder. The Ark is a reminder of God, of God's presence with them. Right? That's why it's called the Ark. And the children of Israel ate man for 40 years until they came to inhabit the promised land. And they ate man until they came to the side of the land of Canaan. Now, 1 omer is 1/10 of an ephah. Ephah. Okay. And it is pronounced this way. Ephah. And so an omer is 2 liters. And so an ephah is 20 liters, because an omer is 1/10. Now, why is this important? Everything that the Bible puts is important. You know, when God gives us his word, he doesn't actually waste words like some of us write essays, right? It is to tell us these 1/10 omer ephah will be used later on in the law as to how to measure, to make things for the atonement, make things for themselves, as well as to treat each other as how much they give, right? So omer and ephah is important to teach us. Now, did they not know it? I'm sure they would have an idea, and now it's become important. And because it is stated as verse 36, this is important for the next chapters going downward. So, you know that they don't have a metric system or an imperial system. So this is God's system to teach them what to do, how much to use. So in the Hebrew culture, they have measurements for dry, they have measurements for wet, right? And they have measurements for weight. So now an omer is not a weight. It is a volume, but for dry things. And so they would also have a volume for wet things. What is so important for wet things? Oil. And then they have a measurement for weights, objects. And so they use weights to sell things. And so God says, do not have a deceitful weight. So when you have a weight of 1 shekel, you make sure it's the weight of 1 shekel. So money comes by weight. And so here lies the end of chapter 16.